I had a problem and I wanted to solve it. And I don't know if I've really solved it, but in this video, I want to talk you through, I suppose, my steps and my thought process around solving it. Hopefully it makes sense, because it makes a lot of sense in my head, but sometimes conveying the sense in your own head, as we all know, to other people can be quite difficult. So the problem was this. The problem was there must be some pattern, rhyme, reason to why Pokemon card booster boxes have the price they have. Because we can all speculate. We can all go, oh, well, it's got rare cards inside. Oh, it's scarce. Oh, well, this, that, and everything else. The chase card's good. Not many of those were printed. We can all speculate, but can we put that in some sort of formula was my problem. Is there some sort of way of creating a Pokemon card booster box price formula and then being able to apply that to modern card sets to then predict maybe the future prices of where they could possibly get to? And I don't know, the answer was sort of hard. It was hard to come by. And I suppose part of my reasoning behind this, I remember back when I was in, I'm taking on a very short journey, back when I was 19 and I did my first year of uni, I remember we had this mathematical literacy class, and one of the books, and I completely forget the name of it, it was something to do with mushy peas. That just stands out in my mind. But it was all to do with there were sort of two parts to the book. The consumerism side, so, not being tricked and being diligent with numbers by advertising, companies are trying to hook you in and buy this 2 for 1, 50% off, blah, 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 all the tricks of the trade, like trying to be smart with that. But then it was also about this, a lot of things in nature seem to be random, but quite often there's some rhyme and reason and mathematical formulas behind why they're there. So, that got me thinking, is there some sort of formula we can apply to Pokemon card booster boxes as to why they have the price they have? And I think, the answer is impossible. And you could say, oh, look, Pokeoz is just absolutely talking out his backside here. This is just absolute jargon, mumbo jumbo. You could well be right. I could well be doing that. Like, I'm happy to cut things on the chin. But, I tried a lot of different equations, this divided by this and this plus this and that times that. And I sort of settled on something extremely basic. And I think the more basic it is, the easier it is to understand and the easier it is to make sense. Before we jump into that exact equation, though, I just wanted to say, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you want to become a channel member, that's nice and easy. Just jump into the homepage, click join. You can shoot me an email if you're a channel member, ask me any investment questions you like. A lot of people have, and I've been getting back to them. So I appreciate that if you're a member. Anyway, back to the video. Is there some sort of equation that we can formulate to work out a booster box price? And I broke it into two easy parts. It's a very easy equation. X times Y equals booster box price. And that might sound incredibly basic, but here's what I came up with, right? I think there's really two parts. So if we work off X and Y, so X times Y equals booster box price. If we work off X and Y, the two parts. The first one is what's inside the box, okay? That is the hits. The top chase card, the top 10 chase cards, the overall depth of the set, that's important to both the intrinsic value of the booster box, okay? What's inside it is super, super important. For example, a booster box where you can pull a $2,000 raw card is going to be, as your top hit, is going to be worth more than a booster box that you can pull a $15 card raw as your top hit. That's just a no-brainer, okay? That is the demand for the set. What comes inside the set brings the demand. Okay, that's why Evolving Skies has so much demand. That's why Lost Origin has heaps of demand, because there's strong chase cards, there's depth to it, there's a trainer gallery inside Lost Origin, which is quite cool. So that's part one. X is what you can pull from the booster box, okay? That's where the demand stems from, like I was saying. When it comes to the other part of the equation, that's how rare the box is. Because sometimes it doesn't matter what comes inside the box. If it's super rare and you can't get hold of it and not many people have it, it gains its own collectability. Look at a set like Rebel Clash, for argument's sake, okay? The top 10 hits in there are, I wouldn't say woeful, but compared to a lot of other Sword and Shield sets, they are woeful. There's not much you can pull from it. But because it was the only Sword and Shield set not to get a reprint, it's quite scarce compared to other Sword and Shield sets, so it gains its own intrinsic value from its scarcity. If you then couple those two things together, you get a pretty mad equation which can quite well equal the booster box price. And I want to talk you through a couple of examples, and then I want to talk to you about how we can use it for modern booster boxes to maybe predict the direction and future they'll go in years to come. Now, again, like I was saying, disclaimer, you could be saying, Michael, you are absolutely talking out your backside. That is just stupid. And I'm sure I'll probably get a couple of those comments. And I'll cop those on the chin. But you know what? Like, this video isn't designed to have some perfect equation, because I don't think there is one. Personally, I don't think there is one. But it's sometimes good to see through, like the book used to say, see through the mushy peas and see if we can actually figure out some rhyme and reason behind why something's happening. Because there's a lot of speculation, but I think this equation isn't quite bad. So let's work off an example, right? Let's jump into a set, and just another disclaimer, this doesn't work for Modern. Like, Modern has demand around the chase cards because they're new and they're fresh and people want to collect them, and it's advertised and it's marketed. People are pulling them, streamers, YouTubers, everyone's opening them up, okay? So there's this natural price increase or demand for Modern sets, but there's no scarcity to them yet. So we can use it on Modern maybe to predict where they're going to go in the future, but I want to wind back to some older sets. Let's go back to Call of Legends, right? So Call of Legends was like a one-off Pokemon card set as a follow-on from the previous saga series, so to speak. If you add up, and I'll bring it up on the screen here, okay? If you add up, so the equation is top 10 chase cards times the box's scarcity should equal booster box price, or somewhere near about it. So if we look at the top 10 chase cards from Call of Legends, and like I said, I'll bring them up on the screen here, they equal $1,730. That's one part of the equation. The second part that we need to multiply it by is how scarce is this box? Now, it's of course not as scarce as a first edition base set booster box. It's not as scarce as a Skyridge booster box. It's not as scarce as EX Deoxys booster box, but it's pretty damn scarce. These guys don't come up very often. They weren't printed very much. And therefore, I think we could almost give it a scarcity of 8.5 or 9 out of 10. So that's how I rank the scarcity scale. So top 10 hits is simply adding the top 10 hits together, multiplying it by its scarcity, and scarcity I'm ranking 1 through 10. Okay, Modern sets I'd say have a scarcity of 0. Like even Sword and Shield, or especially latter half Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet, they have no scarcity because they're still in stores. They're still on major retailers online. They're still on Pokemon Center. There's hundreds of private listings on eBay if you log on there. Like, there's no scarcity to those products. Call of Legends, though, is hard to find. You won't find it at retail. You won't find it in store. The only way to find it's on the secondary market from a private auction, and people know what they've got. So they're going to want top dollar for it. So in terms of scarcity, like I say, I think it's an 8.5 or 9. So if we work those out, just so you know, booster box price last sold on eBay, this is all in US dollars, by the way, was $14,000 US. So if we go 1,730 for argument's sake and times it by 9, we get pretty close to that 14,000 figure. And you might say, oh, well, that's a one-off. Like, you made the equation to suit that box price. Okay, well, let's have a look at something else for argument's sake. Let's go to Aquapolis. Okay, this is going way back in time. It's e-reader time. Top 10 hits, and again, I'll bring them up on the screen, $2,939. So the top 10 hits inside Aquapolis raw US dollar price are a lot stronger than Call of Legends. Okay, it's that older, rarer, better equation in some points, but $2,939, how rare is it? I mean, this box is super rare. Good luck getting an Aquapolis booster box, hey? Like, these don't show up that often. Quite often they'll be listed, at an extremely high price on eBay and best offer. The last one sold for $30,000 US. Rarity, like, it's got to be a 9.5. I would rank a base set first edition booster box 10 out of 10 in rarity, but Aquapolis and Skyridge, etc., like, they've got to be 9.5s surely. So if we go $2,939 times 9.5 equals, okay, again, we're a little bit away, but we're not too far off booster box price of 30 grand. Let's take another e-reader series, like Skyridge, for argument's sake. This has some major bangers inside it. Its top 10 hits equal 5,700 US dollars. And I think, same as Aquapolis, we can give it a rarity of 9.5 out of 10. I think the only thing maybe that deserves a 10 out of 10 scarcity is first edition base set booster box, but we can give this a 9.5 out of 10. Okay, so 5,700 times 9.5, last sold booster box price was 55,000 US dollars. So 9.5 times 5,700, again, get pretty damn close to that 55 grand booster box sold price. So with all that in mind, and I can give you more examples, I did it up a heap more, but I'm not just going to sit here and go through all of them. We can get a pretty rough idea of where things could go in the future. Okay, so let's look at modern sets. And people say, oh, look, there's a lot of things that come into play with modern, but one of the most important ones, and I harp on about this, is the depth of the top 10 chase cards. So let's take a set like Evo Skies. And like I was saying, you can't apply this equation to modern because it's not scarce yet. But the top 10 hits add up to, and I'll bring it up on the screen, $1,612. Let's say it has a scarcity of 0, because it's everywhere. You can still buy it. Like, yes, box prices have gone crazy because the hits inside it are crazy, but where can it go in the future? Okay? What happens when it's 10 years old and a lot of those people that did buy it to hold have sold off a lot of it, and it's starting to get quite scarce. And who knows, maybe because more of it's hit the market, maybe that Umbreon isn't the price it is. Maybe the demand for Evolving Skies has dropped a little bit. So maybe top 10 hits drops down to $1,300 rather than $1,600. But even if it has a scarcity of 5 or 6, if you work out this equation in 10 years' time, it's going to be a $7,000 booster box. I don't know, possibly. Compare that to something ultra modern like Obsidian Flames. If you add up the top 10 hits inside Obsidian Flames, which is $134, not much at all, is it? Okay, what's going to happen when this box starts getting scarce? It's going to take a long time. Let's say even in 10 years' time for Obsidian Flames, it has a scarcity of 4, because Scarlet and Violet was printed like crazy. This set wasn't as popular as Evo Skies New. So in 10 years' time, argument might be, let's say these prices stay relatively the same, it's still $134 and the scarcity is now 4. It's going to be a $500 box in 10 years' time? I don't know. I'm like, can this equation work is what I'm getting at. Take another set like, I don't know, Darkness Ablaze. Look at the lack of price movement on that set. Look at the top 10 chase cards. Look at the scarcity. It's still everywhere. So there's no price movement. And what you can gain from the box is next to nothing. Even if you pull all top 10 hits, you still don't even equal the price of the booster box. So that's why that box has not moved and has not got a stronger box price. Hopefully this is all starting to make a bit of sense. Take a set like Team Up, okay? Team Up's almost getting to that stage where we could start possibly applying this equation, but I don't think we can yet. Like it's not quite scarce enough. It's only, 4 or 5 years old? 4.5 years old? Still though, the total hits add up to $2,061. The top 10 hits add up to $2,061. Let's say in 10 years' time, or maybe even another 6 years' time, this has a scarcity of 5. Is that going to make it a $10,000 box? Just throwing it out there. I'm really just throwing it out there. So I guess what we can take away from this video is twofold. What's inside the box is super important. The top 10 hits inside the box is super important. That's part of the equation when it comes to booster box price. How scarce the box is the other part of the equation. And I just want to sum up this with one last sort of example, right? Take Furious Fists from XY era. This is probably one where we can start applying that equation. Top 10 hits only add up, and I'll bring it up on the screen, only add up to $187. It's not a rare, there's not many chase cards inside this set. Okay, its last box price sale was $1,185. This is somewhat scarce. Okay, it was a pretty short printed set, and there's not too many of them around. So it's maybe one that falls outside the parameter, but even if we gave it a scarcity of 5 or 6, we still get pretty close to that box price. So scarcity matters, but scarcity is multiplied by the chase cards and hits that come inside it. And the other thing that comes into those chase card and hits is their own multiplier, and that is their PSA 10 price, okay, or their graded 10 price. And that's where modern is never going to reach, in my opinion, the same price as a vintage, because the multiplier effect you get on top of your raw price from grading modern isn't what it used to be, okay? That's the other part that comes into the equation when we go into more depth. And I didn't want to confuse the equation or muddy the water, but looking at a Skyridge, some of those crystal cards, if they're getting PSA 10s, they're going from a raw price of $400 to a raw price of $4,000 or $5,000. Like they're 10xing or 12xing, whereas PSA 10 Moonbryon will only 2x its price over its raw price, for argument's sake. So, that's another part of the equation. Anyway, I don't want to keep going because I could talk forever on this topic. But I think you get where I'm coming from. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's all just making sense in my head. But I suppose to summarize, and what we should look at is, look at how much the box is printed, how rare it is, and then also the top 10 chase cards inside the hit. That should give you a pretty good prediction of how it's going to perform long term. I'm Michael, Spokey Oz. Catch everyone next time.